see, and there was something about
Hello everybody, today we have to do a little bit of catch up with last session, and I realized that our seminars had implicit ambiguity, but that makes it so much more exciting. We're on an honest discovery journey then. So today we really want to kind of look a little bit deeper at stakeholder management, because in the last session we kind of didn't even touch on stakeholder management. We kind of start with stakeholder management today. I wanted to as well highlight a few aspects to success from last session. So basically we start where we ended last week. So if you're following in the slides and you want to take notes, this means we kind of start the session with last week's slides, yeah, and then you will see there's a slot where we jump to this week's slides. Yeah? But that is just if you take notes and want to resonate on what I'm saying and record your thoughts to it, of course. Yeah? In terms of literature, this is still the same from last week. So if you have read those pieces, then you are up to scratch. You will see we cover a lot of the theory that has been discussed there, and I show a little bit hints where current research is leading as well. Yeah, so if you want to do your dissertation on that topic, this is the time when you want to take notes and listen carefully. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, this overview is a little bit misleading. This is what we are jumping in after the success and introduction to stakeholders. But again, in our model, we are kind of still running around in the conception feasibility stage, a little bit in the definitions as well. Yeah, but this will make sense later on when we look actually at the tools that we have, project control, and tools that we use normally in execution. Yeah. So this is really where we started last week. Success and what to, yeah, well, it's a philosophic joke, but so success is a tricky one, and we recognize already it depends very much on your values. Yeah, what do you perceive actually as a success? And if you want to go in the most drastic interfaces, yeah, as iPhone has shown us in products, aesthetics and brand and image seem to be defining momentum nowadays in success. Yeah? Whilst other aspects like functionality are actually not the driving factors anymore. Yeah? So that's a little bit what I mean by measure and judge. So and the consequence of what that means. Yeah? So where are we with it? Dependencies of project success. Well, we had first of all kind of the recognition that success can be in different levels. Yeah. So what do I mean by that? So there is maybe the notion of having managed a project successfully. Yeah, so this means you have been in a team, and you as a project manager have managed the project, and the team says that this was an awesome project. I wouldn't have wanted to miss the experience of being part of the team. We collaborated well. Yeah, we achieved something. We all contributed. Something like that, yeah. So, and that is certainly a factor that especially comes up if you are a team manager, if it's something people-oriented. Yeah. So methods like Agile, you will see that there's actually a strong emphasis on things like that, because you get as well peer reviews. Yeah. So you have feedback for your performance with others. Then there is a successful management of the project. And here we talked already about kind of our iron triangle, if you remember. Yeah? So it was the simple notions that are often hidden under the term of scope, which can be financial, budget, resources, yeah, as one. Then the time indication or duration that you have, or temporality. Yeah? This is more in science and like when you get into aerospace, you do rocket launching. Yeah, the temporality is important. Yeah, gravity matters actually on time. But this is a chestnut for itself, so I won't go too much into that. And then the last but not least is of course the quality or expectation of the product. Yeah, or we even arrived at that notion. Do you have actually a customer? So that was our iron triangle. And this is successful management of projects. Yeah, so those two levels only. So here we can actually kind of stop at that level. And you will see as a project manager, this is probably often the driving notion on which you are being evaluated. Yeah, and Darren Dacher has even a wonderful matrix for this. So he comes up with terms like, first of all, managing a project successful team experience. Yeah, so there's an overlap in terminology. Be careful, we mean different things here. Then successful project management. Then he jumps into benefits management. So this is the next one. Achieving greater benefits with a project for business or supply chain. Okay, this is already thinking about particular procurement methods that may be an alliance or for your business organization. Yeah? So benefits is what kind of manifests itself as a concrete thing from your project. Yeah? So we come as well to that a little bit with selection. Are we doing the right project? Are they benefiting our company? Yeah, do we develop the right skills as individuals to work on future projects and so forth? Yeah? And then we have as well achieving the long-term strategic advantage. Be careful with the line, yeah, okay. Yeah. Well managed. Achieving long-term strategic advantage with projects, yeah. That is going a little bit into, yeah, here we have different terminology. So some argue that is where project legacy sits. Yeah, what do you associate with project legacy? What's the difference between project legacy and legacy? How would you pinpoint that?
Project legacy would be the things that we learned from the projects we did in the past. Yes. Basically the feedback, the lessons learned.
Spot on, yeah. And project legacy, well, there is writing about it, yeah. So if you're interested in this, is a hot topic. It's kind of what have we learned in the past project, yeah, what processes worked well for us. And that type of project, so you often have to think as well about categorizing and what type of project you're working on. So it comes a little bit back to context. Yeah? But this is certainly the element that remains within the project frame. Yeah? And then the legacy, what is the legacy then?
How the project will be remembered.
Yeah, so this is a good start. How do we be remembered? Something else? There's actually a program on, actually I don't know, in British television, let's put it very broad, where there was, actually I don't have a television, I'm not really connected with this medium, yeah, so it's a shame I have to admit, yeah. But if you're interested, there was a series of yeah, what would you call it? It was supposed to be comedy, but you know, when you study that topic, this is just painful to watch. It was a series of comedy movies or short movies, let's put it that way. And they basically discussed the project management and the organization of the Olympics. Some of you may have seen that, yeah? They basically had a classic where somebody would walk into the room and said, we have to achieve legacy. And everybody was flattened with this because they didn't know what that means. Yeah? So then other people threw sustainability in, and that became the running joke basically of that thing. And the sad truth is, if you go in a project management team at that level and you drop things like sustainability and legacy, what does that mean? Yeah, well, it's sadly the same reaction like on the TV program. Yeah, so this becomes incredibly difficult to actually implement at the conception stage. Yeah, but legacy is what we remember for. This is kind of hero-sized, yeah, so it's like the good deeds that you're doing. More practically, in other countries and projects, we have defined that as long-term benefits. Yeah, so benefits that go beyond your business remit, that may pay out for society in the greatest sense. Yeah, but it can be as well for running future business opportunities on that basis. Yeah, so if you're building a house, you have actually a legacy by definition. It's operations afterwards. Yeah? Does that make sense? So, and planes the same. Yeah? If you design a new plane, then the running of that program of planes may actually be the legacy that you have, and it may as well establish itself in different engineering forms, parts, and so forth. Yeah. And that really goes as well into the last one that I already described. It was creating prosperity, visionary legacy with a project, so that is a long-term legacy. So we have all these levels, and arguably there's you to integrate them all. Yeah? So there are of course implicit, actually there are logical disagreements, yeah, because we had already pointed out that project is this removal actually from the long-term dependency, but there is a negotiation. There is a political topic for project managers, especially in some countries. Okay. Any questions at that point? Sorry. Okay, this was what we did like last week very quickly, but never bad to repeat something. Sometimes it resonates in different scenarios in your mind, and that may bring new perspectives. Yeah. So again, definition, quickly to remember ourselves. So management of projects involves managing the definition and delivery of the project for stakeholder success. And I have highlighted here stakeholder, be careful with the cable. Yeah. With the stakeholder success, as this is a huge thing. So we have kind of tried to identify that in the seminar. So this is as well often kind of quoted in books with stakeholders. So we have to look after our customer, our shareholders, and our employees. So this is certainly the starting point of our stakeholders. They are parts. Yeah, and be very careful. This comes from the major project association. So they really focus on kind of mega projects or projects that kind of start in the budget range of 1 billion. Now this is kind of the frame to make it a mega project. So if your budget is smaller or the turnover, then it's not yet a mega project. So there's a certain snobbery, it seems. Yeah? Well, 1 billion is rather random in my mind. Yeah, it's just monetary. Yeah, the impact from a small project can be large too, but okay. So, but they basically identify that. And it's very much tailored, I suppose, towards investors. Yeah, this is why you will probably find that. And the second definition that you will find in the detailed documents when actually mega projects go wrong, they reassess this. This is 2005, so a long time ago. That is when we kind of started shifting from shareholder focus on stakeholder focus. Yeah, we noticed that actually a lot of very feasible ideas, like building a railway in Nepal, yeah, where it goes way up. This may be in the World Bank portfolio a good idea, but when you actually have a physical train with a few hundred tons, like moving up a mountain to 5,000 meters, yeah, it's not so good, yeah, quite frankly. But anyway, here, this is where it came from. Difficult to quantify, but it's really down to the question of how much your organization is trying to achieve in understanding, predicting, and influencing what other people think and do. And we know nowadays with the World Wide Web and the social interconnection, this has become a pressing issue. In the past we could probably do a lot of projects that would sit maybe not in the public eye, but nowadays citizens and people around you may be curious, yeah, and it's under investigation. So this has become such a pressing issue that large projects are now accountable to their people around it, citizens, whoever is affected by it. Yeah? So here we had as well other issues actually associated with stakeholders. So stakeholders are individuals or groups that have an interest, are affected by a project process or the outcomes. Yeah, so the most common, actually I break it down in a second, I give you the stakeholder onion, yeah, which is just fabulous. I just have that example mostly for the name, but it's as well a very rich picture, so I hope it inspires. Here just to name a few, it may be the project sponsor, that may be the person that is kind of like championing, yeah, we should really do this project. Sometimes the sponsor is as well the financial person, yeah, jumping in, the budget holder, something like that. This depends a little bit where you are. Yeah, in the UK, we favor actually kind of the sponsor as being the one that overlooks and is responsible for it and kind of champions it. So this is quite interesting. When I say UK, this is kind of the old Prince 2 methodology. Then you have the client customer. Customer is something, user would be another term for that. Then the project team, beneficiaries and opponents, that is quite important as well. So, and the reason really being, if you look at the main reports of project failure, they are numerous, but human difficulties is the largest. It's the most pressing, So what does it mean? Most of our projects don't really fail because we don't have the right technology or because we don't have the right methods of working with each other. It's more other elements, like bad communication between relevant parties, lack of consensus, sometimes even understanding the perspectives of what you are achieving, maybe actually in the counter interest, be it financially, be it on the values of the company, that this preposition becomes impossible to actually achieve collaboratively. Then another one, unclear objectives. As some of you may have experienced now with the workshops, how can you actually achieve clear objectives from ideas and maybe just having a rough direction. And then last but not least, that was another one that was quite important, insufficient senior management stakeholder support. So managers or leaders or maybe company owners that want to do it their way, although there may be actually restrictions against it. So okay, so Morris basically gave us, this is actually out of the book, most projects are implemented by people, and when people become involved, perception, communication, agendas, power and a whole raft of similar issues come into play and begin to change the design, regularity, control, intent of managers. So there is that recognition that it's dynamic, and that we are actually interacting, and this is something that you have to be aware. Identifying stakeholders. This is kind of what you're probably covering with Claudio, because I took that from the World Bank. This is Bent. I think you said something along the lines, the name Flyberg. Anybody from Denmark here? Okay, but Bent has basically written this for the World Bank, how to best start and actually become aware on who is involved and to find your stakeholders. So who has a stake in the issues, who might benefit or be affected negatively, who represents or is likely to be affected. So this is quite interesting. There's a recognition. If you kind of try to identify everybody that is affected, you arrive in a big difficult situation. In some cities that may actually be the case where you have flat hierarchies or nodal driven organization, but in most places you will find that you normally have social representatives that can actually give you a very good idea for negotiation. This has gone as well terribly wrong in some places, so this is an interesting aspect. So who should be included because of their formal position? So there's this well recognition of direct decision makers that actually impact on your project. Who's responsible for the intended? This becomes as well interesting. Who gets involved on that level? Who should be included because they control resources, maybe even access to resources, or bringing resources into you where you're actually doing your project. Who has power to block implementation? And last but not least, whose behavior has to change for the effect to succeed? So this is where that recognition that in some places you start actually with an impossible preposition on the given stakeholder. Then you have to work on a way of finding to make the project work effectively. We will come to that as well with communication and media at a later lecture in detail. So when you started, who should be actually included in like, first of all, finding out who the stakeholders are, because depending on who you ask the questions, you have very different answers. So normally a simple way of doing it and prioritizing by impact is you should have your core team involved. So key for sources of expectations, and then as well core externals, key for success but maybe passive, and then the rest worthwhile to inform due to public announcements, media, yeah, sometimes even creating the idea of how life could be better. Yeah, if you have a bigger budget, run a blockbuster video on it or something like that. Yeah. There are a few companies that have done that, and we thank them now with, I think, entertainment, right, in the form of television or cinema movies. Yeah, but that is in a way one good starting point. Yeah. Did you have any questions at that point? I'll give you an example in a second in my wonderful on. Okay. Oh, this is at the. We jump a little bit back and forwards. Wait a minute. This is actually okay. This is basically because it's last week's session. So we jump in a second forward to the stakeholders. So let's think a little bit about what it means concretely. So after you have actually identified kind of the expectations and prioritized them with your team, yeah, that you have a hierarchy, and identify the success for those stakeholders. Yeah, and sometimes it's compromised. Yeah? So this is important to understand. Then we have to think as well how we actually measure success. And I mean that was more chestnut. Is this actually even possible? But normally we do that by how we plan it, how we manage and deliver the project on time with a budget and added quality, scope, standards, compliance and requirements. So those may be actually things that manifest as well. But notice here, I talk about the how. Yeah? If you're in a community where you try to connect them, let's think of a random engineers helping across border, wonderful charity, we have a lot of projects. So they build, they try, for example, this is still my favorite example, I think. They try to go into Afghanistan communities, yeah, and equip them with solar panels. It's actually pretty smart, yeah, from an energy point, engineering efficiency, yeah. So you put the solar panels on the roof of the houses, they have often flat roofs, sometimes slightly angled, but it's a flat angle. So it's pretty perfect for installing this. Yeah, and so for an engineer this means, okay, you have the optimal technology plan, install it, and that's it. And then within 2 months, pretty much all the solar panels didn't work anymore. The engineers was, what? We have guarantees for 10 years. No, it should be fine. And then, of course, you had people coming to actually fix it. They realized that just the dust from the sand has settled down on all these wonderful solar panels, and quite frankly, made the sheet so you had no solar radiation anymore on the panels. In a nutshell, they then tried to convince the family, look, every time, every week, once a week, you have to climb on your roof and clean it up. Now, this is, of course, here we are already iterating and starting negotiation. They hadn't considered the stakeholders. I can tell you there are a lot of wonderful solar panels at the moment in like regions in Afghanistan, yeah, that are just full of dust. They are little containers and blend into the landscape now. Yeah? So it looks kind of an extension of the roof, but it's not functioning. Yeah? So be careful. The how is very important. Yeah? So the real thing would have been to actually figure out why they haven't got solar panels already and think about how their habitus and life kind of dictates maybe methods, yeah, that are applicable. Yeah? So just to give you an example. Okay, so what do I mean by that? The traditional idea, and then to be aware, this is our still standard method that we have kind of refined over 30 years or 50 years, depending on what you're subscribing to, project management may be. It's like a legitimate idea from the client or customer, yeah, that you refine, then raise resources, feasibility plan, yeah. Normally this is, so we can even make that more concrete, yeah. Here's a company, we have an idea, we need this new product to be a little bit like this, since this would really improve it to the market, yeah, so a market analysis. And then you have here like, oh, how much sales can we make? What is the reasonable budget? So you kind of dictate the budget and feasibility, and then plan it, yeah? And then you start doing it, you recruit your team leader or project manager, depending on how you want to do it, and recruit your designer team and subcontract engineers, you know, and operational team that is actually doing it. So this is still the old theory. But because innovation is so cheap nowadays, yeah, and you can go as well online and go in your garage and like do something, yeah. We have actually a parallel process that becomes very dominant. Yeah, Aito, he's a director of the Media Lab in MIT. He is a huge fan of that, and I'm as well quite passionate about this process. It's kind of an agile method of doing things. So, kind of, you sit together with your designer and engineer in the first place. You have an idea that is maybe quite centric to your world. Yeah? So you create something, and at that point you realize, actually, this is a brilliant idea. Why don't we try to maybe bring that out there? Yeah? Often this is just a draft patent. You will see movement like Makers Fair is quite popular here in the UK. Actually, in the Northeast, we have a Makers hub, so where you can go and come up with your design and just print it in 3D printers, or they help you to actually do it there. And then go actually and think about your business plan and say like, okay, how do we want, so here we have already the finished prototype. Yeah? So we have kind of agile managed to do basically all that. And one thing that is missing here is what that, here we have a formal team leader that is kind of managing the requirements, yeah, and that's a definition, what came from here. Here we don't have that necessarily. So where's the leader? That is a big question. Yeah? And then well, that is leadership there too, yeah, don't get me wrong. But anyway, then you basically have the prototype, and it's a different way of actually getting forward. So we may actually, if you want to go the commercial way, you may go with business angels or joint venture capitalists that may actually give you money and then kind of buy part of your product to actually push it. And that means like at that point, we actually kind of present it to the idea, we may use marketing, and it's producing to a pull. So we see this model working particularly well if you're networked. Yeah? So making the products for your friends, maybe then friends of friends that think that is cool and want it to. Yeah? That we see that there is a networking approach. That means you have to be kind of connected. Engage in networks, go to networks, present what you're doing, what you're working on, and looking if there's a synergy. Yeah? So it's, there is another notion here. It's not as clear in the management who is doing the lead. Yeah? So everybody in the network has a potential to use the information in the network and embrace this to their benefits. But the promotion is normally of the networking. And producing to the pull, this is how many people actually want. Yeah? So it's a pull method where people say like, I would like a gadget of that too. And you can see it then normally in markets. So you have actually a scale where you're producing. Yeah? By the way, this is as well what those guys try to do. So if you are in a company where lean principles or Six Sigma or advanced quality enhanced production is a topic, then or topics like tier 4 digitalization in your company, then you're most likely as well adapting to a pull method, yeah, which kind of likes an agile idea. Yeah? So interesting stuff. There's a lot to read up around that. So let's bring that back. How can you break that actually down in the project success criteria? Well, again, here we have to first fight with the terminology. So project success criteria serve as a motivation engine by being achievable milestones of the project. Yeah, it's what you're measuring. So in a way, what defines actually that that product is at the level where we want to release it, yeah, where we are happy with it. There are other terminologies for that. This is not the only one, yeah? So there's actually quite a raft of it. And key result areas, critical success factors as well. There's as well kind of an umbrella method. So if you have a very detailed technical project, you may have critical success factors as the ones that kind of determine if it works, and project success criteria, more the interface of what is desirable beyond that. Yeah? So you would have more of those, and in a way, the critical ones would be the highlighted project success criteria. But again, this depends on how you actually prioritize that. That is something that you kind of predefine at the conception level. Yeah? Or in the other case, depending on how your clients react, how the pull is. If somebody asks you, no, I don't want it in red, I like it in purple. Yeah? Then you know that there's a refinement. Yeah? You need to have purple option 2.